need to win this to make Valencia, but could really use a point here. On the other side, Trifecta, if they find this 2-0 victory, all but punch their ticket.
They are looking incredibly solid for Valencia if Trifecta are able to close this one out 2-0. But Luminosity, I think that it's kind of on the edge. They're teeter-tottering on the edge here. We saw them when they were playing at, like, I would say top form. And for a second, it looked like they were the best in NA. But
yeah,
it seems as though they've kind of started to falter in the past couple of weeks.
They've had some struggles as of late, without a doubt. Terra and Naja, the bans from Luminosity, we got to respect that Naja that Sino sure has. Trifecta go with the exact same bans they did last game, but they were in the first pick position. So now Luminosity has the choice. Do they go for that Khepri again? No, it's going to be the Soul, and I like this pickup because, again, you want to keep this out of Snoopy and Heroine's hands. And
a fairly safe pick as well, considering that you can flex that either to the ADC role. We all know Bear has got a 6 Soul.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure that Baskin has a very solid one as well. I mean, he's definitely an established mid laner, I'd say, by now. He knows how to play mechanically.
But again, Fafnir left open for Ionic, and Trifecta immediately going to take it, and the Morgan. The same 2 picks that they did last time. But Morgan, again, I think a flex pick here could be for Heroine, who played it very well in that mid lane and could go to Kiki in the solo.
They're just trying to keep that 100% win-loss on Morgan alive. That's pretty much what it's coming down to, I think. And Matt's going to try and run it back on the Susano. I like this choice. I don't think that Susano was really the issue in that last game. I think that Luminosity just fell a little bit too far behind to really make their composition work.
Geb, the other selection for Jeff Henless. So very similar to the Khepri, but not quite that Egyptian Guardian. No, wait, Geb's an Egyptian Guardian. They're the same. What's the difference? Odin, the pick for Trifecta. That most likely going to Kiki in that solo lane, who has just seemed to really fall in love with this god. Even whenever, you know, Luminosity doesn't have a particular comp that Odin destroys, Trifecta pick it anyways.
Odin is still fairly strong against this comp. If they catch the soul out of her Disapparate, or if Susano is unable to get his jet stream off in time, they could still very well get 3 members trapped inside. And if I'm Trifecta, I'm probably just going to look to focus down Jeff Hinla again, because Geb isn't exactly the safest Guardian early on.
Well, Trifecta had the option to go for the Apollo once more for Snoopy, but said it's going to be the Kernanos taking it away from Barracuda, though that could be Soul for Barracuda. Jingwei, the pick. What year is this? Is this season 3? Luminosity first pick Soul and then pick Jingwei, and you don't know which one's going mid or Hunter? I mean, this is a cut and dry season 3 Luminosity composition, even the Robin.
I mean, I think that Jingwei is an excellent hunter right now, and she's incredibly safe. I think that safe is what Luminosity kind of need to go for early on. When you have the Geb on your side, you don't really want to risk too much, because if they can make it into the mid-late game stage, their draft is phenomenal. It's just the concern about whether or not it's going to be able to get that far, and some Wukong being locked in leads me to believe that could potentially be an Odin jungle.
Could be Odin jungle. Could also be Wukong jungle. Captain Twig played it fairly recently, so Trifecta has some ambiguity to that draft. I was like, you can say this word. Don't worry about it. And then I mess it up anyways. Game 2, ready to go between Luminosity and Trifecta. This time around, a little bit of a different look for Trifecta. They don't have that early game pressure from the Naja. It is going to be Sinosure with that Sun Wukong jungle, taking a page out of Captain Twig's book, who also plays the Naja a lot. Maybe Sinosure is the NA Captain Twig.
I mean, I think Sino can also get away with the Wukong simply because Trifecta eliminated Nemesis in the first 2 bans. And if you're going to be running 2 Warriors and a Guardian, that is probably the best thing you could possibly do for yourself.
Nemesis would have been an excellent selection for Luminosity, but you're right, Trifecta clearly had the plan. Barracuda is going to be playing the Jingwei. It's a Baskin on that Soul in the middle lane. And even though I think this is the much better orientation of these 2 picks, I still kind of find myself surprised. I mean, when I think of Soul, I think of Barracuda.
I don't think Soul fares as well against a Kern, though, as far as the safety department is concerned. I think they might get pressured out a little bit too easily.
Oh, scary, coming around the back. Heroine on this Morgan has no escape, rooted in place. The Purification Bead is good for the moment, and no first blood for Luminosity. Somehow Heroine escapes, and I think in large part due to the root. I mean, the root actually is more damage than the Prana Onslaught at level 1, but having that second cooldown up may have been enough for Luminosity to find it. Either way, it does get them the enemy speed buff, and it looks like Trifecta will trade out, stealing away Luminosities as well.
Hurry wins beads as well, I think, were a big saving grace for him in that mid lane, able to just barely get out of that route and move fast enough away for Mass and be unable to pick up the last hit.
Very, very close, but already Luminosity off to a better start than they had in game number 1. Scary D under a lot of pressure, though, on this right-hand side. It might not be that much better of a start as Kiki just needed one more auto but couldn't quite find it. The 180 route from Scary D gives him the heal and the distance necessary to get away.
And this is the problem, is that now his blue buff is pretty much free to invade. It's going to be so difficult for Mask to try and get in there, prevent this from happening. Although cooldowns have been expended for the most part by Kiki and Sino.
Sino does secure it for Kiki, but Scary D has arrived in his hit level 3. Kiki low on mana, but should have enough to jump away when necessary. Mask boxing at level 2. That shield already shredded down, and Scary D is going to find the first blood with the overhead kick. Luminosity put themselves on the board first.
This rotation by Baskin could have been so deadly too for Sino, but immediately recognizing the danger, opts to run away. Fire Elementals are also going to go the way of Luminosity, so again, they should have that pressure onto the Fire Ellies.
Another early lead for Scary D in the solo lane. See if he can maintain it a little bit better than he did in game number 1. Luminosity finds that first blood on the right side of the map. This time on the duo lane side, it's Barracuda and Jeff Hinla getting pushed under tower, which is about what you expect for Jingwei Geb, at least in the early stages. And
I like how Mask and Scary D, as soon as Kiki has been popping that shield, just bursting it down as quickly as possible. You don't get the benefit from that damage if the shield is already eliminated.
Much more disciplined play from Luminosity. Instead of full committing to try and steal away that blue buff, instead, Mask and Scary D just get the little ones, try and get away, but Scary D's gonna have to try and get away, but he will not be able to. Sino sure closes the distance, but Mask makes his presence known in the mid lane, finding a return kill onto the Morgan.
Sacrifices solo laner to pick up the kill in mid, and I think that that still plays out a lot better for Luminosity, considering that Hurrywind's a much better bounty early on. If you can get Baskin ahead on this soul, that is going to be so great for Luminosity as far as objective control is concerned.
And even though Luminosity didn't find that first blood with that first rotation around the first wave, it was that purification beads that were down, and I think that's what leads to that kill onto Hurriwind. And the Morgan only has that stealth that gives her a little bit of extra movement speed. No other escape options, especially pre-level 5. Mask gets locked in here. Jetstream's on cooldown, but Kiki's the one in trouble. He's get pulled out of that Prana Onslaught, but the Typhoon gonna knock him up, and Scary's gonna find the kill. A little bit of a bait there from Mask, trying to get Kiki to cage him in, and Kiki took the bait.
3 kills for Luminosity, and Mask has been an assistant to all of them. So already showing that Susano definitely wasn't the issue in the last game. I think he just had a rough time trying to start off the impact with it. But with Scary D maintaining such a strong lead now due to these rotations, I think that we might see a couple of early rotations from him as well.
It could make that his presence known in the mid lane for sure. I mean, as I mentioned, the Morgan, no real escape. Now hitting level 5 and having the purification beads back up means that Hurrywind's going to be a little bit safer, but certainly pretty susceptible to ganks in that mid lane. Whenever the Morgan was first released, everyone was saying, I don't think she can really mid because she's too unsafe. It's too difficult for her to get away, and it's too difficult to put that damage out with the 3 aspects as a mid laner because you just get blown up with such a short range ability. But players like Lobster and Zeros have kind of proven that to be not the case. A lot of those guys really initiating with that 3 aspects and stealth combination.
I mean, she's 14 for 14, so that's got to stand for something. I think that she's definitely a strong mid lane asset right now. Granted, if you have a equally proficient mechanical player.
Yeah, and certainly Hurriwind can fit that role. We talk about it all the time when it comes to Morgan players. How well can they play? The different gods that they have at their fingertips. Hurriwind, one of the initial multi-role prodigies in the game, so you know he's got it all on lock.
That's the throwback right there, is referencing Hurrywind as the multi-role prodigy from the, what, the COG days, I believe?
Yeah, way back in the day. Eonic gonna show his face on this duo lane side, but misses the hammer onto Barracuda. Even if that would have connected, you mentioned during the picks and bans, Jingwei, one of the safest gods in the game in terms of that hunter role.
Plus, it's so much easier to abuse the farming factor of Jingwei. You can constantly grab those back harpies off cooldown and not really miss out too much in the wave just because of the fact that her passive allows her to fly that far.
Mask again on this right side. This time no kill potential with how far under tower Kiki is, but I suppose the fire elemental's coming up. Not the worst thing in the world to be splitting another wave with Scary here, but I don't know. Sometimes we see junglers do this where they get their solo laner a lead and then continue to tax their waves afterwards. And in some scenarios, I think that it might be better to just leave them alone and let them run away with that lead a little bit more.
I kind of don't blame Mask, though, because he's getting a solid amount of farm, and against a Wukong, especially since Sino's opting for the Talaria boots, yet again, looking for a lot of poke, I believe, with his Cudgel to proc that. Oh, look at the blink in from Jeff.
But no Cataclysm. There he goes with it. 3-man, and Ionic is here. Herwin transformed into Kiki to lay down that cage. Good damage coming out of Mask, and there's the Supernova coming down from Baskin. Sinosure does claim Jeff Hindla there, but they trade out Herwin to mid laner for support. Knowing Jeff Hindla, he's going to be happy with that trade 7 days a week.
That's worth it every single time. And I mean, Sino even almost died right there. Just that last little bit of the ultimate from Soul unable to connect.
Barracuda still sitting at level 8 with Snoopy. Now has a slight level lead and going to take this opportunity to put a little bit of aggression on the Snoopy. And Jingwei, I think that in previous, in Season 3, whenever LG was basically first picking her every game, and for good reason, having that Fatalis effect on agility was such a big factor, but now getting that extra power is still a big boon if you can find yourself with that knock-up agility combination.
Plus, Barracuda also doesn't have to worry as much. Oh, he's looking for the ult invade, and he is able to secure that, I believe.
Wow, ult for buff is going to take it. Now Snoopy in a lot of trouble as Mask continues to play aggressive. Well-timed shield from Jeff Hindla gets Mask out of the stun from Ionic, and Luminosity going to end up on top there, not only in terms of getting that buff away from Trifecta, but forcing Snoopy back, forcing him to miss a little bit of farm in that dual lane.
The pressure is on to Hurrywin right now and Kiki. They're both a little bit behind. Scary D, however, needs to be careful about this gank. Doesn't have all that much health to spare.
Good overhead kick, no ultimate, ready for Scary D, and again, gonna just be able to escape that damage. The key component of that gank for me, or in the survival from Scary D, is not using the overhead kick for the Tiger Stun, instead trusting himself to juke out that pretty difficult to maneuver ability, and then use the overhead kick to get out of the Raven Shield damage.
He had to wait for the Bird Bomb to come through before popping that overhand kick. And I mean, for a good reason, it's such a deadly combo early on from the Odin. That damage is actually pretty insane if it connects.
Both junglers spending some time in this solo lane. Now it's Mask's turn to show up and put some pressure onto Kiki, who is going to survive for the time being. Had his cage up anyways, was going to be safe basically no matter what. Luminosity off to a much better start in game 2 than they had in game number 1, but still not in the commanding position that Trifecta was even at this 8.5 minute mark. They're up about 1,600 gold. That experience lead, though, pretty significant, almost 3,000.
And a lot of that is coming in from the mid lane aspect. Baskin's level 10, meanwhile, Hurrywin's sitting at level 8. Baskin will probably be turning level 11 right as Hurrywin's hitting 9. And look at Mask with the aggression.
Trying to find under Hurrywin again, and he will. Purification Beads wasn't even enough to save Hurrywin's life. A little too slow on that transformation, and now Luminosity uses power play opportunity to get the Gold Fury. This is going to go down no problem whatsoever. A quick Gold Fury in Luminosity's favor, and make me eat my words saying they didn't have quite the lead that Trifecta did in game 1. Now before the 10-minute mark, they're up over 3K gold.
And the 3K gold isn't even really what I'm looking at. It's, again, the experience. I'm sure that 2.7K experience has only shot up even further. Hurrywin actually still at level 8. Meanwhile, Baskin's hit 11. Almost a 4K XP lead.
Mask has been all over the place on the Susano. 2-man cage from Kiki, knowing Mask doesn't have that jet stream available. Jeff Hindla the focus for the time being, but Scary D gonna join the fray. Cataclysm knock-up combinations good enough, and Kiki's gonna fall. Hurrywin lays down a second cage, but the rest of Luminosity just don't care. Sinosure finally able to find one. Luminosity's Mask fell as well, so it's a 2-for-2 for the time being. Sino continues to play aggressive as Scary's very low. Sinosure is going to find him with help from his own clone, and it's Trifecta who end up on top there with 3-2 kills.
Very fortunate for Hurrywin to find, again, another 3-man Odin ult, really keeping them locked inside. They were fine after the first one, but trying to survive through 2 can be pretty rough.
Sinosure 4-0-1 on the Sun Wukong, really making it happen for Trifecta. Now with a teleport in from Kiki, that's enough to secure this Portal Demon. Big kills there, and Hurrywin really needed some of those to go his way. Unfortunate that none of them did, but still gets now 4 assists to his name. It's going to help him get a little bit closer to where Baskin is in the next P.
Out of all the mid laners to be behind on, though, Morgan is by far the best one, considering that you're never really behind when you're a Morgan. If the rest of your team is still profiting, you can maintain the lead alongside of them or maintain that relevancy just because you have your ultimate.
That's true, and you're looking at what Herwin's going to be leveling. It's primarily the 2 as the mid laner and then the 1, and you got to look at how that transitions to whoever you're transforming into. And Odin is as good as it gets. You don't need to have any points in your ultimate. Doesn't care about that. You just need to have that Raven Shield Bird Bomb combination ready to go, and maybe that's why we see Trifecta really prefer this Odin pick so heavily right now.
Plus, I also just really like Odin as far as lockdown potential is concerned. When teams are more synchronized with each other, I think that Odin is always an excellent choice, especially facing off against a draft like Luminosity has gone for, where no one really has a solid escape other than expending ultimates and Souls to Saturate.
I'm just a little worried about the late game follow-up damage from that cage. I mean, I'm assuming Herwind will stop transforming into Kiki around the 20-minute mark and instead look for something like the Kernanos or even the Wukong at that stage if he wants to go for someone on his own team. But there's just not a lot of follow-up for AoE damage in that cage.
Well, the thing is, if you look at Trifecta, when you're running a Sun Wukong jungle, you're not exactly looking for the late game. I believe that it's based more around that early to mid game stage. So as long as Trifecta are able to bounce back from this initial aggression and initial lead that Luminosity have gathered, I think that they'll be just fine.
Right now, Luminosity still in the lead, but Trifecta chipped away at it a little bit with that last engagement, but again, LG starting to separate themselves in terms of experience as Mask again heading over to this right side. It's not only him this time, though. It's Jeff Hinla and Baskin in tow. Blue buff respawns, and that's the focus for Luminosity. Kiki wants to get in here, but only sitting at level 11. Finds that 2-man cage, but Baskin has a Disapparate charge, and he's going to be able to get out of there. Mask will not, and he's going to charge the Typhoon. Kiki falling very low quickly, and that Cataclysm knockup combination is good enough. Herwind traded into Kiki as well, and he's likely to fall. Mask with his third, 9 in total now for Luminosity, and a quick 2-0. Some decent damage across all members of Luminosity, but no burst, Taco.
They tried it again. They tried to do the double Odin ult, except this time they didn't have the bird bomb damage coming through on top of Mask and Jeff Hinla. So when they're not 1 HP, not really a whole lot for Sino to try and clean up.
Barracuda is going to get this tier 1 tower in middle as well. So 2 tier 1s go down, the one in mid and the solo one. So that's 1,000 gold in total, 500 per tower. Barracuda now going to continue to strip away gold from Trifecta, taking away their red buff.
And I think he might be trying to cut off Snoopy here, look for a little bit of aggression onto the Hunter. No, he's more content to just go back to his lane and farm it up.
There's a saying in there somewhere about 2 people passing in the woods with no idea that the other is there, but I'm not smart enough to remember it at the time being. Luminosity up 9-5 in kills and extending their gold lead a little bit farther now up around 3,500 gold. With this Gold Fury respawning, Taco, this is exactly where you want to have about a 3,000 gold lead, because Gold Fury is usually that kick in the pants to get you really ahead in terms of golden experience.
But look at that experience difference, 6,200. That is huge.
And Sinosure sitting a little bit behind Mask, I believe, in terms of levels, despite this strong game that he's having. Kiki is the one who was pretty far behind. He was sitting at level 10 during that last engagement, didn't even have access to his second relic. 2 levels down still for Herwind in that mid lane, and 2 levels for Jeff Hinla over Ionic. So you're right, almost everyone on Luminosity has a fairly significant lead in their favor.
And that's going to make things incredibly difficult for Trifecta to try and fight back into. Herwind needs to be basically on point with these ultimates, otherwise they're just going to continue falling even further behind.
Scary gonna eat a little bit of poke as he walks pretty aggressively through 4 members in the mid lane, but not a whole lot as overhead kick saved him from a little bit there. Gold Fury has been started by Luminosity. It's already around 50% HP. Barracuda and Baskin trying to get it done. There's a cage that comes down from Kiki, but immediately Luminosity peel off the objective and go for the kills. That cage coming up big though, and Mask is locked in it. Baskin's gonna take care of Ionic on the backside though, as the rest of Luminosity push forward. Mask trying to find Kiki in the mid harpies, trying to chase him down. Susano, good luck getting away from that as Scary finds Herwind. 5 deaths now for Trifecta's mid laner. Jetstream just a little bit too slow on that one, but Mask not wanting to give up this chase.
I think that Mask can catch him as well, or at least prevent Kiki from backing, which is going to mean that nobody from Trifecta is going to have a chance to contest.
Smart play by Kiki there to sit in that Fire Giant pit. That's slow, helping him get away. So Baskin and the rest of Luminosity get the Gold Fury. Cynosure in trouble, has just enough mana for that 72 transformation, but just enough is not going to do it because that Scary D is coming around the back. Aegis will buy him a second. Barracuda shows up, and the knock-up combines with Scary D to get that kill on Cyno. Kiki's teleported in, finds the Bird Bomb into Barracuda, but could have locked Scary D underneath that tower. I don't think he knew he was there. Now Barracuda's just going to be able to trade into Kiki pretty easily here, up 3 levels over Trifecta solo laner. Knock-up just a little bit too slow to find it, but now Ionic's rotated in.
But you've got Geb shields on your side. Scary D all alone, however, trying to tank up 3 members. Hurrywin rotating around the backside. They should have the cleanup, and they do onto Scary D. Jeff Himla's got to get out, and he will, but I'd still say that that was kind of in Luminosity's favor, a little bit of an overstay.
But look at where Baskin is. He's just pushing. All this time, it was a distraction for Trifecta. Baskin's going to be able to get this tier 2 tower in middle as long as he full commits to it, and he will do just that. Gets 1,500 gold for Luminosity, and looks like he may be able to escape, but look at the pincer maneuver that Trifecta is going for on that right-hand mini-map. Now Baskin caught between a rock and a hard place, and that disapparate speed buff combination zooming down that right side.
Snoopy's got to hit him with a root, and I'm not sure he'll be able to do so. And the rest of Luminosity, meanwhile, is starting to rotate over. Mask looking to go in. They're engaging too hard onto Baskin.
3-man knockup from Mask, and he gets out of the cage. Jeff Hindler, the only one locked in there. I don't think he minds too much, though. There's the ultimate coming out of Hurrywin's version of Susano, but Mask gonna say, I'm the real one here, and puts down Hurrywin. Bird Bomb just off the mark from Kiki, and he's gonna fall. Mask with another kill, 5 in total for him, and Scary D all by his lonesome, pushing away 3 members of Trifecta.
Meanwhile, Barracuda is skipping alongside into the fight. Hey, guys.
Hey, I'm here and doing a lot of damage. Bye, Ionic. I'm probably going to kill you here. Airstrike going to be right there, putting Barracuda in position. Actually just trusting his team to finish off Ionic, trying to find Snoopy. Realizes that Trifecta's Hunter is a little bit too far out of range and going to take that one for himself. Luminosity find another tower. Now just 2 left standing on the map for Trifecta. Another big gold boon, and Trifecta now down almost 10,000 gold to LG.
And that is actually going to make it right at 10K gold difference. That is rough.
I mean,
it just spiraled completely out of control.
So Hindu and I talked about it on Thursday, and it's just very clear how different the 2 metas from NA and EU are evolving. EU, their average game time is probably north of 32, 33 minutes. Luminosity and the rest of North America, these games seem to be much quicker paced, and most teams tend to fall behind very quickly and permanently for that matter. What's the main difference? Why do we see EU have such close, long games and NAs are usually blowouts?
EU is more objective-based. Hold that thought, though. Kiki's trying to make sure that Luminosity stay off this Fire Giant just a moment longer so the rest of Trifecta can rotate in, but it might have just, and it did, just cost him his life.
Fatalis complete for Baskin, and the chase is good. Barracuda still on this objective and doesn't have any lifesteal, but is happy to tank it up for the time being as Hurrywin gets chased down in that mid lane, down 4 levels to Baskin. The stealth's going to buy him a second. Now he's going to transform into Jingwei, actually trying to trade out up against Baskin, but then uses the airstrike, trying to get away, but the Stellar Burst going to catch him. Scary. Going to notch number 6 for himself.
Baskin with that Fire Giant buff is just absolutely terrifying. It's a soul, and it's a pretty boosted soul at that.
It sure is. Look at where Jeff and Barra are on the player damage charts. They really haven't had to do a lot of heavy lifting in this one. It's been all Scary, Baskin, and Mask thus far. Mid Phoenix falls as Cynosure was split pushing on the left. Does get 1,500 gold in Trifecta's favor. Good ultimate there out of Snoopy, and a better one out of Kiki as he locks a couple underneath that Phoenix. Jeff Hindler taking quite a bit of damage from it, but a good knockup from Mask. Finds 3 underneath Trifecta's Phoenix. Baskin now again allowed to get in there and throw those autos out. Plenty of penetration in that build, as well as that additional attack speed from the Fatalis.
They were really, you could tell that they were missing the frontlining potential from Scary D in that engagement, though. Not having enough peel to really commit to that right-hand Phoenix. Scary D opted to back just to ensure that they wouldn't be losing a Phoenix themselves to the split push, but I like the decision-making, and now that just means that all Luminosity had to do, back, spend that gold, and then siege T1 and T2 and left.
That's another 2,000 gold waiting for them. The Gold Fury is going to respawn in a dozen seconds, so that's a couple more 100 gold, I should say, for Luminosity. So it's getting tough here, Taco. I mean, Trifecta, like we said, really could have used these 3 points. These two teams came in tied and looks pretty likely to leave tied as well.
And again, that's just going to leave things so up in the air for North America. I mean, we've got the ALG set later on today, and if Allegiants are able to find a 2-0 in their set, they'll actually be tied amongst these other teams.
Man, what a knot it is atop North America, and it's unlike Europe. They're only sending 3 teams to DreamHack Valencia, so keep that in mind. Europe sending 4. A little bit tougher to get there in North America for the time being. Both those towers on the left are gone, as is the Gold Fury. But Luminosity not too interested in spending the gold they've just gotten for themselves. Instead, want to continue this siege. They've got Fire Giant for their minute and 40 seconds. Scary D first one in underneath that Phoenix, tanking it up. Whirlwind transformed into Baskin and is already falling very low. Big knock up once more from Mass. Some of you've heard that one before. Huge Cataclysm from Jeff Hinla allows Scary D to finish off Whirlwind on that backside. There's Baskin's ultimate, doing a little bit more than Whirlwind's did when he was playing Soul. Kiki gonna fall right as he gets into the fountain. Baskin claims his 6th, 6-0 and 8 for Luminosity's mid laner, and LG even it up. We came in tied, we're leaving tied. 1-1 between Luminosity and Trifecta.
And this is the crazy thing about North America to me right now is